Hey guys, my name is Oliver, and I'm going to be sharing my testimony for Testimony Tuesday. As you can tell, I'm Asian, which means I'm from an Asian background, just throwing that out there. But yeah, my parents came from China, which was a very, and still is to this day, a very performance oriented culture. So my family is not a Christian family. In fact, I came to faith when I was 15 years old. So till then, a big part of my family raising me was based on performance. What they wanted was good grades from me. What they wanted was excellence, being first place in like whatever it was, swimming, tennis, I don't know, being popular with the ladies, being popular at school, whatever it was. But I never really felt like I could meet their expectations. Um, that stereotype of like if you get one B, oh no, you're a bad Asian or whatever. Like, it is partly true because like back in those times in China and still today, grades were everything. The fact that my mom and dad were in the 1 percentile academically gave them the opportunity to move from a place of a poverty, to being able to go to school and college. So they were really enforcing that on me, and just living with them was really tough because still to this day I feel like I'm more of a carefree, go lucky guy. I had a really hard time meeting those expectations. So like at home, it'd be a lot of shouting, a lot of parents' disapproval. Just me always trying to meet their expectations and feel like I'm somebody. As a result, I think I was a very troublemaker in school. I had ADHD. I was probably like the class clown, just trying to get people's attention. So I don't know. It wasn't the best start. A lot of it was really just trying to make somebody of who I was because I never really felt that I was enough, because I guess I was never enough to my parents. So I don't know. I just always wanted to be like everybody else, the popular kid, the one who got all the ladies, had a girlfriend, was popular at sports. Um, but I don't know. I just could never seem to, just on my own, I could just never seem to feel that sense of fulfillment and love from my parents. And I was bullied a little bit in school as well, not too much physically, but I wasn't the most popular guy either. So a lot of my life really is from elementary school to middle school to high school. It's pretty much a repeat of trying to prove myself, trying to prove my worth, because that's kind of how I learned to get approval from my parents and from people, is by meeting their expectations or showing that I'm somebody. So in high school, I thought it'd be tennis. The tennis team was where I'd really prove myself, show who I am, prove that I can be somebody. But even though I ended up being like number one on the tennis team, there's just still that sense of emptiness and this sense of like, I need to go higher, I need to go greater. I'm still not good enough. Why aren't people liking me enough? Why am I not cool enough? Just pervading sense of not being enough and not being loved for who I was just kept driving me to do better and to do more. Um, I remember asking my dad one time, because like I did have questions about the afterlife around then. It just occasionally just came to my mind, like, Dad, what do you think happens after you die? And my dad was like, some people say you turn into a pig, or some people say you turn into a bird, or something like that. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I never really thought of much about the afterlife. I just wanted to be popular. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be liked. I just wanted a good life. Um, but occasionally, this person named Christian, funny enough, in my life would try to invite me to church. So there were a good amount of times where he tried to invite me to church. I actually declined a lot. His family tried to invite me as well. And it was funny that this one time he actually did trick me to go into church, where he said, "Hey Oliver, we're going to this place where we're having fun, there's games, there's food." I was like, "Okay, I'm down. I definitely want to go." And then his mom drove me and he pulled up to this church, and I was like, what in the world? Like, I don't want to be here. And then of course I ended up sitting there in this small group where they were talking about the Bible, and I was just like, oh my gosh, why am I even here? But that just to say that in my pursuit of like self-actualization, to feel like I'm somebody special, church and God just never really appealed to me, period. I felt like it was a waste of time. I feel like it just means I have to kill off a Sunday or I can't eat certain things, so it just didn't have any kind of appeal to me. But yeah, I wouldn't say my life was too happy either, because like people I wanted to beat were beating me. I just couldn't seem to get the results that I wanted. So it's just like, my life sucks. What's wrong with me? What do people have that's better than me? Why are they better than me? So yeah, it's really just a mess. But what happened was one night, my friend Christian just didn't give up on me, and we were at this tennis tournament, this professional tennis tournament, and we were walking outside during the nighttime, and he was just talking to me about heaven and hell. Talking to me about how heaven's like this greatest place you could ever imagine, full of joy, and talking about how hell is this place where there's fire hotter than the sun, and you'll burn there for eternity. Um, that part scared me. So, going to hell kind of scared me, kind of woke me up. So, from that night on, I don't think he told me about Jesus, but he told me about just God, believing in God, and about the results of heaven and hell. And funny enough, that kind of scared me to really start thinking about the afterlife. So what I did was I went to sleep that night just thinking about it. I actually remember trying to pray to God that night. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of praying to a God of some sort. I think I distinctly remember just lying on the bed, looking up and just praying. And I was wondering, am I just talking to myself or am I actually like talking to a God? I was like, God, if you're out there, I'm praying to you. Do you hear me? It wasn't very smooth, but I was just trying to pray to a God of some sort. And then what happened was the next morning, my mom walks in, and then she comes in with this big smile on her face. I always remember it. And she's like, "Hey, Oliver, I want to tell you about Jesus. Do you know about Jesus?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually I do. Like my friend Kristen the other day just told me about Jesus." And she was like super shocked. She was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." Because it turned out that on the same day yesterday, she heard about Jesus from her friend, and she's been denying Jesus and church, all that kind of stuff for the longest time. But for some reason, yesterday she too accepted the idea of God, because I guess God brought her to a point where she finally accepted it as well. So my mom and I both heard about and received Jesus on the same day, which is crazy. So it was that kind of weird encounter where we looked at each other. It's like, wait, you heard about Jesus too? Like, yeah, I heard about Jesus too. Because we never really talked about Jesus in the house before then. So just that, it was just funny at that moment. It's like, huh? Okay, apparently we both are ready to accept Jesus now. So my mom's like, okay, let's go look for a church. So we went to a church, a Chinese church, which we're still attending to this day. It's been about 11 years in that very church. And from then, we learned about the gospel in separate ways. For me, I learned about my favorite verse back then was John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. So two things in there to know: that there was a God, a Father, who loved me for who I was enough to die and send his Son to die for me. That made me feel just so special inside. I may not know a lot about the Bible, but just knowing that I had a God who loved me enough was just so special. It made me feel like, you know what, I don't have to really fight for people's approval anymore. I don't have to really prove like I'm somebody, because I have the God of the universe who died for me and loved me. And yeah, there was that other verse I really liked, though I know it's misquoted, but Jeremiah 29:11, talking about how God says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans for prosperity, plans not to harm you, but to give you a future. That just said like, okay, you know what? I don't need to really fight for a plan of my own anymore, because if God has a good plan for my life, I don't have to try to be somebody I'm not, because God has a plan for my life. God died for me. If God's for me, who can be against me? So that really just relieved me of so much pressure of trying to be somebody I'm not. I didn't know much at the time, but I knew that God loved me and had a plan for me. And, that was really enough to be able to start sharing the joy I had of realizing that I have a purpose in my life, that I'm special, and that God loves me enough to die for me. So my mom and I were baptized on the Thanksgiving service that year. We both shared our testimony in front of the church, and we were both baptized. So my testimony is really like a mom and son together conversion kind of thing. So, mom and I aren't like perfect, but we're glad that God saved us at the same time. God called us, and I tell you, man, God the Father is the one who came to seek us. He is the one who gives you worth. He's the one who gives you purpose. He's the one who gives you life. And, you're just going to keep searching for life and happiness if you keep searching it apart from him. So here I am happily serving now. God's given me strangely a gift of worship, which people seem to be really encouraged by. They can worship God themselves. It's like just God gives you these new gifts and equipment when you become His family. And my mom's a deacon of the church. Can you believe it? My mom, God just called us, and He's helping us serve in different ways, giving us gifts in different ways, and He's given us a new purpose, new hope, new life, and an eternity in heaven, the greatest place you can ever imagine to look forward to. So, yeah, that's my testimony. Thanks for listening.